I never assume that I know what people think or plan. I never assumed that when someone said something or wrote an email, I understand what was behind it. So I will always create a conversation and open everything on the table and ask the questions and explain why I'm asking the questions.
Welcome to our series entitled the IAM Podcast, a podcast about innovation, business, and most importantly, people. In this series, we'll be talking to founders, executives, and various experts about their vision, challenges, best practices, and lessons learned throughout their journey. Let's get started. Hi, what's up, everyone? Today, it's my pleasure to be joined by the Director of Operations at Kando, Tzvika Fisher. Hello, Tzvika, but I'll call you
Uh,
Mike.
that works, no problem.
How are you? And welcome to the IAM Podcast, Mike.
I'm very good, and thank you for having me on your great podcast.
Thank you. We are so excited to speak with you and learn more from you about your product, about your market, your team, about operations, your project management style, and everything about your journey. All right, so let's get started.
All right,
Okay, so could you share with us your quick elevator pitch, like an overview of yourself?
sure. So, like you said, I manage operation. I've been managing operations for most of my career with a little side work of doing some sales at some point when I worked at a startup that we can talk about later. But as you know, in a startup, everyone is doing everything. So I did a little bit of sales as well, but most of my experience is with operations. I started it as a project manager when I finished my mechanical engineering degree in Israel, and I managed projects in HVAC systems, installations, and design of industrial systems. And then I moved on to being a product manager for the startup that I mentioned. We were working doing some technology for energy savings, also in HVAC systems, and we had this great technology. We were starting to implement it in the U.S. and then I moved with my family to Houston, Texas, and I opened our office there. I started growing our business and building operations teams, and did a little bit of sales, like I said, and not to say that I didn't like it, but operations is my stronger side. So I stayed focused on operations. Like I said, built a team, built procedures, and from there I moved on to managing the operations of a control water valve manufacturer in the U.S. as well. So that was a subsidiary of an Israeli company. At some point, after about 7 years in the U.S., enjoying the Texas style, we moved back to Israel, and this is now where I'm at with Kando, like you said, which is a company that is basically um, finding pollutions in sewer systems and giving insights to our customers, mostly water utilities, as we say it, that they can't control what they can't see. So we help them see what's going on underground in their sewer systems, where their problems are, and of course we help them solve these problems. So here in Kendo, I manage the operations, and yeah, that's the elevator pitch without getting into too many details.
Okay. So, yes, at Kando, you improve the water waste. I want to know, like, what is the worst thing that can happen? Because you said we don't really pay attention to what we don't see. So, what's the worst thing that could happen if we don't do this? If we don't improve our wastewater?
So what happens is that wastewater, and it doesn't matter if it's industrial or residential, but the wastewater that we like to ignore, because once we flush the toilet, it
That's it.
disappears, right? It's magic, it's gone. So it's not. And it's going to a wastewater treatment plant that's supposed to treat the wastewater in such a way that what comes out of it is supposed to be better than what came in. In some cases, as good as using it for irrigation or using it for even drinking. You'd be surprised, but it doesn't always happen because when the pollution is too high, when things that are not supposed to flow in the sewer system goes there, and it's not by mistake, it's because factories do things that they shouldn't sometimes. What happens is that the treatment plant is not capable of dealing with such a high load of pollution, and they end up throwing or rolling the problem downwards, all the way to our oceans or rivers or anywhere in nature, and that's really the effect that we're trying to avoid or help all the people in the chain, the wastewater treatment plant, and all the way up to the plants that actually pollute the wastewater. We want to be able to help them realize what's going on. We are here, we see it, and this is what we think that you guys should do, that the end result will be better for the environment.
Okay. How was it? I mean, where do you offer your products to, and what's the impact of your product?
So we work worldwide. We have projects all over the world. We're still not a very big company, but we're growing, and this is really where my passion to the operation kicks in. I like, and what I enjoy doing in operations is really taking something that's working and it's before the big growth, and making sure that we can actually operate when we're bigger. So, planning ahead for the growth, building teams, and bringing in the right people. It's not always that the people that were good in the beginning are the same kinds of people we're going to need when we grow. We always need the experts from the beginning, but they will always need support from the outside, and that can be different types of professionals. So finding out what are the kinds of professionals we need for the growth, and what tools they're going to need to be able to operate when we have a bigger mass of projects, of customers, and also the processes that we will need to work at, which are not the same when we're small, obviously. So these are all the things that I'm actually doing right now and I've done before, is preparing for the growth, which is always difficult because it happens while you grow. You don't have that period of wait. We're small now, we're going to be bigger, let's prepare for that, and then we'll be big. It's always growing, right? So
Yeah.
it's always a big challenge.
Okay, so talk to us about operations. Like, what is it in a day of a director of operations like? Talk to us about your style, your team structure.
I guess there's three sides to the operations team. We have project managers who actually manage all of our installations worldwide. We work with subcontractors in each country where we have a project and a customer. And the project managers, they design the projects, they train the partners or the subcontractors, and they work with them throughout the project. And that's one side. We also have the technical support that works on enhancements, malfunctions, supporting all of the issues that subcontractors might encounter on the field. So we have that team. And then we have everything that is supply chain and procurement. Like I mentioned before, the planning ahead of working with the sales teams on the forecast and asking them this always difficult question of, tell me what you're going to sell in 3 months from now because I need to buy it today. And of course, it's not a fair question to ask a salesperson, what are you going to sell in 3 months, because they don't know. But there are ways to, of course, to estimate, and we work very closely together, operations and sales, on the forecasts and trying to figure out what we're going to need in the near future, 3 months from now, 6 months from now. And problems with supply chain globally that everybody's been feeling, of course, in the last 12 months at least, even more. These things are just, they're rocking your boat all the time. There's no constant, here's a PO, I need the materials in 2 months from now. something keeps happening all the time. Mm. But this is the world we live in right now, post-COVID or during COVID.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. So speaking of remote teams, do you also, well, is Scrum Teams a good way to manage a project? Or do you do daily stand-ups? Like how do you do it?
We don't do either. I mean, we have our daily and weekly meetings. Depends on the teams. The technical support team, obviously, they're in the office, in the lab, every day, all day. They have to be there because that's where the equipment is. Our project managers are more flexible, but they've always been more flexible because their work is spread around the world across
Mm.
all five continents where we have projects. So they're always either traveling or on Zoom meetings. It has never been strengthening for us for them. Working internally between us remotely, that's the change. And I think that's the bigger challenge here is on really on the managerial side, because we needed to learn to be able to control or to lose control, but still trust the people and make sure that the work is being done, and find the ways to keep our finger on the pulse without seeing the people in the office every day or without being in the office. And yeah, for that we have scheduled meetings and more reporting on emails of what has been done and what's open, and discuss a lot of discussions on also on the things a lot of the things that I do, like the growth that I talked about. If I want to
Mm.
implement a new tool, a new software that will help, let's say, the project managers work with their subcontractors, it's something that I have to do with them. I don't do it by myself. The implementation of these things, or even before the implementation, specifying the needs are theirs, not mine. So, so I need to work a lot with them. And for specific things like that, we try to meet in person at the office when we can.
Growing
But
operations teams, you said. So yes, as a director of operations, I'm imagining like you are overseeing the sales, the planning, everything, the people. So do you have any best practice or some tips or what's the strategy?
yes, I do. I think the biggest thing is to keep talking, be open, and always keep talking to people. I never assume that I know what people think or plan. I never assumed that when someone said something or wrote an email, I understand what was behind it. So I will always create a conversation and open everything on the table, and ask the questions and explain why I'm asking the questions. Um, I'll give an example to make it
Yeah.
clearer. Um, I've started when I joined Kando, an SNOP meeting, or sales and operations meeting, a scheduled meeting with the different sales teams for the different regions, where we sit down and discuss the pipeline. The sales team work with a CRM, with a software, with Salesforce for that matter, where they have all their pipeline updated constantly. And I look at that, and that's supposed to give me the full picture of what's going to happen. When are we going to get what deals, how much equipment I'm going to need for each and every deal. And I can take the final number and look at it and say, okay, I'm going to need X amount of units installed in 3 different countries in the next 3 months. But I take that report and I meet with the team, let's say once a month, and we go over it and we discuss it. And there are always things that come up, always. Either something that wasn't updated properly and it's important, and we catch that thing, or something that was updated, but they want to tell me that they do think it's going to happen, but give me another week because I have a meeting with their sales director next week, and I'm going to know a little bit more. Things that come up in a conversation that the softwares can't replace, or the text messages and emails can't replace. So and when I talk to them, I explain to them why I'm asking. I'm not criticizing what they put there. I just want to know because next week I'm going to open a new big purchase order for one of our suppliers. and I want to make sure that I have everything that they're going to need inside this purchase order. Otherwise, we're going to have to wait another month, and I don't want them to miss this boat. So the open discussion is very, very important. This was just an example with the peers, the sales teams. It's the same with my team, my employees. Everything that we do is very open, and everything is open for discussion, either in a group or one-on-one. And it would be the same with the founders that I report to. Everything will always be open. If I explain to them that I have needs for more team people or more tools, I won't only justify it with a spreadsheet that explains the work hours that we need more people. It will always be an open discussion where I can show them, explain to them the pain that my team feels right now with the workload. A spreadsheet that says this person is working 130%, it's nice, it says something. But when I explain how much it hurts because they have kids at home, or they're traveling so much more than they should, that's something that only a discussion can do. That's the way I see it. So open discussion, put everything on the table, and communication. These are my tips, my key for achievements.
For sales, what if you don't hit your targets? Could you talk to us about KPIs or OKRs?
Yeah, so well, because we're growing like we are and we're constantly changing, then our KPIs change as well. So it's very difficult to track the KPIs when you keep changing them all the time. We do have to put the KPIs in place, and I like KPIs not for what they are, not for the numbers that you need to hit, but more for the structure, for the frame that it gives. So if we don't meet our KPI, it's not a bad thing necessarily. It could be a great thing, because then we sit down and we talk about why didn't we meet those KPIs. Let's find the reasons, the issues, and we'll work on that. So I don't care if you only got 3 out of 4. I care about why didn't you get that one? What do you need so next time you can get it? Okay, that's great. And if I give you this tool, can you make 5? And it might be obvious. I might get an answer that says I can make 7 if you give me this tool. So now we've improved not from 3 to 4, but from 3 to 7, just because we talked about what was missing. So I really don't care about not meeting the KPI as much as I care about what needs to happen. What needs to happen to reach it next time.
Okay. Wow. Like, how can I help you? That's what's in mind. Like the mindset. Okay, how can I help you reach this or fulfill this target? Okay.
Exactly.
Could you give us one example of like a project and then it did not turn out how you expected it to be, and how did you manage that situation?
Let me think off top of my head.
Yeah, since you work all over the globe, right?
Right, right. So we've had a project in Europe somewhere where the project started during COVID. So we weren't present there from the beginning of the project. We managed everything remotely, including the field installations. It was done with videos. So we trained the subcontractors on site through Zoom meetings, and then they went out to the field, and we were doing video calls with them and seeing what they're doing and explaining to them, a lot of pictures and a lot of calls, and that's how the project started. And it was okay, it was good, but it wasn't great like we wanted. And we couldn't get there. It's in a country where it's been red for almost all of last year, and we just couldn't get there at any point. So we had to keep on working remotely on that, and it wasn't the result that we wanted, but it was the best that we could get in this situation. So on one hand we were happy with the result, but we wanted it to be better. and we couldn't. It was very frustrating. Um, so I'm looking at it as a success and a failure, both combined, because we've done the first remote training and installation and initiation of a project, which is a huge achievement because the
Mm.
project is okay, it's good, it's running. But on the other hand, it's not the level of excellence that we want. Um, as soon as the skies opened, we flew out there, a whole team, and we went there together with our partners and the subcontractor, and the customer was extremely happy that we were able to, only by the fact that we came there, even before we improved the project. They were so happy that we engaged in a physical communication and relationship, and we
Mhm.
of course we the project is now at the level where we expected it to be. So that was a great situation to be in. Just to be able to see the importance of actually physically being in with the customer, with the project, because like I said, remotely worked, and it worked okay, even good, but we were missing that personal touch from good to great. That's what was
Mhm.
missing.
Where do you have your footprints on again? Which countries?
Um, so mostly in Israel, and outside of Israel, Europe is a big market for us, mainly Italy, but a lot of other countries around. US is a very growing market for us as well, and we also have things in South America and a little bit in South Pacific. Um, in we're hoping to grow in New Zealand and Australia the upcoming year. So it's really all over.
Yes, it's really all over. So how do you adjust to time zones? Or how do you delegate things?
My project managers, they each get a territory that they work with, and um, it is difficult because they have to work on Israeli hours as well, because there's a lot of things going on internally, but then also working with the subcontractors and the customers across the oceans. So we don't have daily meetings because of that, because each and every one of the people, they work different hours. But we do have our a few weekly meetings,
Mm.
and for those, these are anchored. Everybody knows that they need to be on those meetings, because this is where we all get together to discuss things. And then I have one-on-ones with them according to the work hours that work mostly for them. So I don't have to work with New Zealand hours, except for the occasions where I'm needed at some of the meetings, but not on a regular base. But I do have to work with the guys that work with New Zealand or the US, or so I adjust my time to work with whatever works for everyone else, and of course everyone else in the office. We work very closely with the product teams and the R&D teams, and everyone else, finance, sales, like I said. So some of them are local and work local hours, but some also work with a lot of people from outside of Israel.
Yeah, okay. So yes, you started working in a startup in Israel and then you went to the US. So could you talk to us about like okay, going to a different country, experiencing a different culture and maybe a big company compared to a startup, how's work there?
Yeah, that's a whole new. I mean, that's enough. We can talk about it for a whole new podcast. Actually, a series of podcasts we can do on that. But in a nutshell, it was a great experience. Of course, personally, I learned a lot, and I experienced different work cultures, not just work, but cultures as well. Um, I think the most important thing that I've learned is that you need to recognize that there is a cultural gap, and you don't even have to know how to bridge that gap, but realizing that the way that you operate, the way that your country operates, or your company is not necessarily, or it's necessarily not the way that other cultures operate. just that acknowledgement by itself is a huge thing. And I'm saying it because I've seen over and over people coming from different places to the US in that case, and thinking that everything is the same. And the way that they used to sell, they're going to sell it in the US market, for example, and it's going to work. Or the way that they used to operate their business, they're going to do the same thing when they open a new office in the US, and it's going to work. Or the way that they talk to their American peers is going to be the same, and it's going to work. And this is where you fail, because you have to understand that even a word that you say, or the way that you say a certain word, can be taken or accepted differently on the other side. So when you're aware of this and you start paying attention to that, this is when you can start building that bridge, and to bridge that gap between the different cultures. And it's not easy, and there's a lot of differences. Could be huge and could be just little nuances. But being aware of that and realizing it, and talking about it with people who have been there and already built that bridge, that's where the magic starts to happen. That's where you can bring the good things from your side, and bringing it, to the other side in a way that they will accept it, they will understand it. And when two cultures meet in a good way, there's only good things that can happen.
Right. What is your biggest takeaway from your journey? I mean, what's one important lesson you would like to share or leave our audience or listeners out there?
Okay. Well, I have to give it from my personal perspective, which is
Hmm.
Israeli perspective, uh, looking at things in the US. And I think, let's say that would be my tip to any Israeli moving to the US to work there.
Mm.
I would say, put all cynicism aside. Everything that you think that you know about the American market, the American people, put it all aside and come with fresh set of eyes, and be open to understand that America has been there for many years, and there are companies that are older than our country. So there is a reason why things there work, and try to learn these things and see how you can take those, uh, the work procedures or the tools that they have, or the way that they run their companies or their operations or their sales. And it's not all going to fit to what you want, but there are so many great things that you can learn from there and try to implement it on the way that you do things. And that way, like I said, that's where the two cultures meet, and you can use their experience and their ways in a way that your company can benefit from it. But it really takes, like I said, lowering the cynicism, lowering all the gates that we build around us, thinking that we know better than anyone else, because we've invented this thing, right? If you're a startup and you invented something, I invented it. I know how to sell it. I know how the market, what the market needs. Hold on, there's a big market outside. Listen to it. Maybe there's someone else local that can sell your product better than you can. It's just something that you need to be open to. And
Yeah.
once you are, it's only great things will happen.
That's insightful. There's a really a lot of things that is good for a different podcast episode about
Um,
sales, about culture. Okay, you should
anytime,
come back. Okay.
anytime.
So, having said that, this is one statement you have to fill. I am Tzvika, your blank director of operations. So, what do you want to put it beside your name?
I'll say overall, your overall director of operations, because the way that I see the operations role, or the person that manages the operations, is that whatever the company needs to happen, that will happen, it's on me to make it happen. So overall, let's say I sit with our CEO and he tells me, this is what I want for next year or next month or next quarter. This is what needs to happen. And it doesn't have to be operational only. It can be sales. This is how much I want to sell next year. I need to go and make it happen on my end, of course. I'm not going to be the one going and selling, but like I said, I need to sit down with the salespeople and say, hey, our CEO wants an X3 sales next year. What do I need to do to make sure that you got to help you guys make it happen? So anything that an overall view of everything that the company needs to happen, we, the operations, we are the supporters, the service. We give service to the company. I'm giving service to the sales team. You go sell, just tell me what I need to do to help you be successful. So it's an overall role. It's not just let's go and purchase items. It's really an overview.
Wow. So does that come with experience? I mean, how do you think out of the box? How do you get those ideas? How do you get them? How do you push them? Where do you get the strategies?
It's experience. I was lucky enough to choose different routes in my life that gave me a lot of different experiences. If being working in Israel and in the US, working for startups and working for big companies, working with people who have taught me a lot throughout the way, but also working completely solo where I had to make things and find things and try and fail and try and find the right things. So all of that combined is really a big package of a lot of things. And I just try to use all these tools in the right place. It's all about collecting the tools along the way and also knowing which ones you pull when you need something.
Wow. Okay, there's really a lot to learn from you, but wow, time is very fast. So I thank you very much, Tzvika, for your time. Thank you, Mike, for your time, for saying yes to this podcast. All the best to
Thank you very
Kando.
much. I've had a lot of fun.
This podcast is powered by IAMOps.io. Optimize your cloud infrastructure and CI/CD process with IAMOps.io dedicated DevOps team. Check out www.iamops.io and get a DevOps team now. Make sure to check out www.iamops.io if you want to know more about us. Subscribe to our podcast so you can get notified every time we post a new video. Thank you, and you have a great day.